14-year-old Marcus Wilson from Detroit's Industrial District stands frozen before the wrought iron gates of Lakeview Academy in Michigan. His callous fingers tighten around the strap of his second-hand backpack as his mother's parting words echo in his mind, his late father's mantra about never letting them break him. The sprawling campus looks alien, all manicured lawns and ivy-covered brick, buildings reflected in the glassy lake beyond. Students in designer clothes cluster around luxury cars, their laughter carrying snippets of conversations about Swiss boarding schools and Mediterranean yachts. Their eyes flick toward Marcus with undisguised curiosity as he shifts uncomfortably in his discount store sneakers. Only Mr. Collins, the literature teacher with kind eyes and skin the same rich brown as Marcus's own, offers a genuine welcome. During the orientation tour, Marcus's gaze lingers on the music wing, where a polished brass plaque announces a school orchestra. The sight sends an unexpected pang through his chest, resurrecting the image of his father's neglected saxophone gathering dust in their tiny apartment back home. The music room smells of brass polish and old sheet music, sunlight streaming through tall windows onto rows of gleaming instruments. Mrs. Gray stands rigid at the front, her pearl necklace catching the light as she surveys the class with icy precision. One by one, students demonstrate their skills on polished Yamahas and handcrafted French horns, their performances met with polite nods. When Marcus's turn comes, the room grows still. He mentions learning saxophone for his father, and a muffled snicker ripples through the back row. Mrs. Gray's lips tighten as she retrieves an ancient school saxophone from the storage closet, its keys slightly tarnished. Marcus accepts it automatically, his fingers immediately detecting the loose octave key and misaligned pads. He brings the mouthpiece to his lips anyway, then hesitates. The instrument feels wrong in his hands. Not just out of tune, but somehow disrespectful compared to his father's lovingly maintained horn. Lowering the saxophone, he shakes his head slightly. The classroom erupts in whispered laughter. Mrs. Gray's eyes glint with something like satisfaction as she takes back the instrument, her parting remarks slicing through the stifled giggles. As students file out, Marcus remains seated, methodically wiping fingerprints off the saxophone's bell with his sleeve. The last to leave, a girl with strawberry blonde hair lingers by the door. She says nothing, just meets his eyes for one deliberate moment before disappearing into the hallway, leaving behind a faint scent of citrus and the unspoken promise of an ally. The abandoned saxophone gleams dully on its stand, a silent challenge waiting to be answered. The dormitory falls silent after lights out, leaving Marcus alone with the glow of his desk lamp. He pulls his father's saxophone case from beneath the bed, its familiar dents and scratches telling stories of smoky jazz clubs and late-night practice sessions. As he assembles the instrument, memories surface, his father's callous fingers adjusting his grip, the warmth of shared laughter after hitting a difficult note, the way their tiny apartment would vibrate with sound when they played duets. Wrapping himself in a hoodie, Marcus tiptoes to the basement where industrial washers hum in the darkness. Between concrete walls stained with decades of detergent, he brings the saxophone to his lips. The first notes emerge tentative, then grow stronger as muscle memory takes over. Coltrane's Neema flows through the metal, each phrase carrying years of pent-up emotion. The basement transforms into a sanctuary where expectations disappear and only the music matters. One evening, as Marcus finishes an intricate solo, soft applause echoes from the stairwell. Emily stands frozen mid-step, her physics textbook forgotten under one arm. Moonlight from a high window catches the amazement in her expression. She doesn't interrupt, simply sits on the bottom step and listens as Marcus plays on, the music now infused with new purpose. When the last note fades, she points upward toward the main building where Orchestra Audition posters hang. Marcus shakes his head, fingers tightening around the saxophone's neck. But then his father's voice echoes in his mind, not as a memory but as a living presence. Music isn't meant to be locked away in basements. The instrument feels lighter in his hands suddenly, as if the ghosts of all those unplayed melodies have finally been set free. Emily waits patiently, her silence more convincing than any argument. Somewhere above them, a clock chimes midnight, marking the end of one chapter and the unspoken beginning of another. Marcus submits his application with careful penmanship, sliding it under Mrs. Gray's office door at dawn. The rejection comes before lunch, a crisp form letter citing limited positions for first-year students. Emily's hands tremble as she reads it, her usually perfect posture stiff with outrage. Mr. Collins finds Marcus brooding by the lake, tossing pebbles that skip then sink. The teacher says nothing, just leaves a worn copy of Bird, The Legend of Charlie Parker, on the bench between them. 3 days later, Marcus's mother arrives in her Sunday church dress, clutching a cassette recorder with his basement recordings. The headmaster's eyebrows climb as gritty jazz fills his polished office. Mrs. Gray's lips compress into a bloodless line when he overrules her decision. Audition day arrives under leaden skies. Mr. Davis, the guest adjudicator, slouches in his chair until Marcus places his father's photograph on the music stand. Then the old musician sits forward, elbows on knees, as the first notes pour forth, raw and aching and alive. Even Mrs. Gray's pen stops its judgmental scratching, though her expression remains frosted glass. The final note lingers, vibrating in the sudden silence like a heartbeat. The spring concert hall buzzes with anticipation. Every velvet seat occupied by parents in evening wear and students fidgeting in stiff collars. Backstage, Marcus adjusts his tie with damp fingers, the saxophone hanging heavy around his neck. The program lists him simply as Marcus Wilson, saxophone solo, but the weight of those words presses harder than the instrument against his chest. When the spotlight finds him, the glare obscures the audience, turning them into a dark sea of indistinguishable shapes. He begins softly, the first notes tentative like footsteps on unfamiliar ground. Then the music builds, each phrase layering anger and longing, the struggle of these months pouring to bell of his father's saxophone. The high notes soar unrestrained, the low tones vibrate with raw emotion, until the entire hall seems to breathe with him. The final note hangs suspended, then shatters into thunderous applause. The standing ovation begins at the back where the kitchen staff have gathered, spreads through the student section, and finally reaches the trustees' front row. Mr. Davis claps with quiet intensity, his nod conveying more than words could. Mrs. Gray remains seated for 3 precise seconds before rising with mechanical grace, her exit through the side door barely noticed. Emily's hug crushes the saxophone between them, her whispered words lost in the noise. Mr. Collins stands apart, his smile carrying generations of unspoken pride. Marcus looks down at his saxophone, its scratches and dents glowing under the lights, more beautiful than any polished instrument in Lakeview's collection. In this moment, he understands. The victory isn't in the applause of the solo, but in the quiet certainty that some barriers, once broken, stay broken for those who come after. The brass plaque outside the music office now reads James Wilson Memorial Scholarship in bold letters, its surface polished to a mirror shine. Marcus passes it every morning on his way to class, sometimes running his fingers over his father's engraved name when no one's watching. The scholarship's first recipient is a 12-year-old trumpet player from Detroit, her eyes wide with disbelief when they hand her the brand-new instrument. 3 afternoons a week, Marcus rides a bus downtown to the community center, where peeling paint and buzzing fluorescent lights feel more like home than Lakeview's hallways ever could. The kids crowd around his saxophone case before he even opens it, their sneakers squeaking on the warped linoleum floor. They call him Teach, with grins that remind him of his old neighborhood. Back at school, the same students who once whispered now nod respectfully when he walks by. The orchestra room door stays open when he practices, the sound carrying down the hallway, where freshmen pause to listen. On the last day of term, Marcus sits by the lakeshore as sunset paints the water gold. The faint echo of a beginner's scales drifts from the music wing, hesitant but hopeful. He closes his eyes and imagines his father's laugh mixing with the sound. 2 versions of the same song separated by time, but united in purpose. The saxophone case beside him bears new scratches from enthusiastic students, each Marcus story just beginning.